Welcome to National Pension Partners, where retirement planning meets peace of mind. Today, we're diving into the 412(e)(3 plan, also known as a fully insured pension plan. This isn't just any retirement plan. It's the gold standard for stability and guaranteed benefits. How does it work? Simple. It's funded exclusively by life insurance and annuity contracts. This means no market risks, no actuarial assumptions, just ironclad guarantees. Think of it like this. You're a small business owner who hates surprises. The 412(e)(3 plan gives you predictable, stable contributions every year. Your future benefits are backed by insurance contracts, so you know exactly what you're getting. No guesswork, no headaches. But there's more. These plans are designed to maximize your contributions and offer significant tax advantages. And with National Pension Partners, you're not just getting a plan, you're getting a team of experts, attorneys, CPAs, actuaries, all dedicated to making your retirement as secure as possible. We provide personalized consulting, ensuring that your plan is tailored to your specific needs. Best part, initial consultations and proposals are absolutely free. $0, zero commitment. So if you want a retirement plan that's as reliable as your morning coffee, head over to nationalpensions.com. With the 412(e)(3 plan, your future is in safe hands. Retirement planning never sounded so thrilling.
All right, folks, it is Friday the 13th. That's right, it is actually Friday the 13th. And we'll have to find out if there is bad luck for politicians and all along those lines, or just people in general. But definitely we'll see how things are going. Apparently, China is raising its retirement age, now among the youngest in the world's major economies. So that is something that we are seeing in the news. So it looks like there might be a raise in that retirement. And that's the first time that that's happened since the 1950s. So that's a long time. That was even before I was born and everything. So that'll be very interesting to see how that plays out in China. And Russia is expelling 6 UK diplomats as tensions rise over Ukraine missiles. So that is something else that we're seeing, as the UK says Russia's spy claims are baseless as Putin is escalating his role over Ukraine weapons. So that is something else that we're seeing. And an Ecuador prison director was shot dead as she drove with co-workers, and apparently that was the second such killing, as the female warden of Ecuador's largest prison is killed in the country. So she was killed and 2 officers were injured in a violent attack. So that is something that we're seeing in Latin America. And the Vietnam typhoon death toll has risen to, it looks like, above 233, as more bodies are found in areas hit by landslides. And Asia's most powerful storm has submerged parts of Vietnam and Thailand. So that is something else we're seeing in terms of weather. And Russia has produced apparently some kamikaze kind of drone with a Chinese engine. So Russia is importing Chinese fiber optic suicide FBF drone that costs $17,000. So that is something else we're seeing. So it looks like they're using fiber optics in some of their latest weapons. And Russia claims start a fight back in the Kursk region. So Ukraine's Kursk offensive was seen as a major success, but it came at a huge cost. So that's something else that we're seeing. And Israel kills 40 people in Gaza as the UN chief urges the end to horrific violence. So Middle East crisis, Israel defense strike on school compound as condemnation is mounting in that about that attack. And IDF has named 9 Hamas operatives, including 3 UNRWA staffers killed in the strike on the school. So that is something else that we're hearing in the news as well. And bail for the Delhi chief minister after 5 months in jail. So Indian opposition leader Arvind Kejriwal has been released on bail. And definitely we'll see how this plays out in Indian politics. So there's political things going on all over the world. And Biden signals openness to using Western long-range missiles inside Russia. So U.S. and the U.K. are discussing the use of Pentagon missile guidance data for Ukraine. So Biden and Starmer are set to meet as Ukraine pushes to ease weapon restrictions. So that's something else that we're seeing in the news as well. And England's health services apparently are in deep trouble. A radical simplification of the NHS is now upon us. And definitely that is something that is going on there where they look like they're going to try to do some reforms in their healthcare. And Elon Musk has called the Australian government fascist over misinformation law. So free speech concerns grow after Australia cracks down on social media companies. So definitely that is something going on in that part of the world. And if Shaquille comes through, maybe they'll have some thoughts about that as well. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about that. And two were charged with stealing the Banksy artwork "Girl with a Balloon" from a London gallery. So it was a London art heist that has taken place and or took place, and it looks like there have been two charged with that particular crime. And Peru is declaring 3 days of national mourning for former President Alberto Fujimori. So definitely, that's something that is that country is mourning the loss of. So he was the ex-Peru leader who crushed insurgency before being convicted, and he died at the age of 86. So that's something going on in the world news. So let's see what's happening here in the U.S., and then I'll see who I've got with me, and all along those lines. So definitely, there's a number of things that are taking place even in the U.S. and all along those lines. So Harris calls for another debate at the North Carolina rallies that she was having yesterday, and she was saying that we owe it to the voters. So definitely we'll see what happens in that space. The last I heard, Trump was refusing to have that third debate or second one with Harris and all along those lines. But we'll see if that stays the course or if he decides to have a third debate. And wildfires are burning more than 100,000 acres in Southern California. So definitely the wildfires are slowing, but they are still threatening the suburbs. And a Georgia judge has dismissed two charges against Trump in election interference case. So definitely that is something going on and all along those lines. And Francine is weakening as it moves inland, bringing additional rain. As a matter of fact, we're having rain right here in North Carolina, and I think that Francine was impacting Louisiana, but definitely we're having rain here in North Carolina and all along those lines. I think it's supposed to last all day long and that way. And definitely there is some concerns about affirmative action and some of the cases that are going on in that space. I know that yesterday, Boston University's Black first-year student enrollment fell to 3%. I think Northeastern to 5%, and Asian Americans are seeing mixed results in enrollment after the end of what some people are saying, the end of affirmative action. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And a Springfield bomb threat used hateful language toward migrants, Haitians, and the mayor, according to something that just recently came out. So the Springfield school was evacuated yesterday, as was Ohio BMV locations, and Ohio BMV locations and county offices were closed as well. So definitely, after those remarks, it looks like it is having some impact in that area as well. And after an Arkansas jail inmate starved to death, officials highlight the felon and definitely a $6 million settlement over the death of an inmate suit who was said to have been starved after, I guess he couldn't pay for some of the things that he needed and all along those lines. But his family is saying he resembled a victim of a famine. And this is from the family of a man who died in Sebastian County Jail, and that family has received a $6 million payout and all along those lines. So definitely it'll see what goes on in that space. And Lindsey Graham is joining the MAGA Civil War with a hit on Laura Loomer. So definitely we'll see how this plays out because the 9/11 responder reacts to Laura Loomer joining Trump at the 9/11 event that was held a couple of days ago and all in that space. But Lindsey Graham said, I don't often agree with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but he was urging Trump to ditch the toxic Laura Loomer. So, she's seen as a far right activist and all in that space. So definitely we'll see what goes on. And last but not least, as I mentioned, that storm was going, well, two things. That storm was going on and everything. So Gulf Coast residents who still reeling from Hurricane Ida are cleaning up the mess left by Francine. So it looks like they had already been dealing with a past storm and the cleanup from that. And now they're dealing with Francine as well. And a North Dakota's near total abortion ban was struck down by a judge. So a judge overturned North Dakota's abortion ban, citing a woman's fundamental rights. And that took place on yesterday. So definitely the abortion issue and women's rights will play an interesting role in what goes on in the political sphere and everything. And last but not least, Biden has targeted Shein and Temu with new rules to curb alleged abuse of U.S. trade loopholes. So that took place earlier today as well. So Biden wants to close a loophole that enables imports of clothing and illicit substances from China. So the U.S. is moving to block a popular tariff-free path for Chinese goods. So if you're a fan of Temu or some of those other goods, it looks like it might be harder in some ways. I've got Rick Rosner with me, and I've got Sasha Starr, and I'm sure maybe even Nick will join us as well, and we'll see if anybody else joins us also. But that's just some of the news going on. Nick, what is your take on the world with your take on China and apparently raising their retirement age? I guess they've allowed people back in the day to retire at a relatively young age, and now they're pushing it back to a closer to other Western age and everything.
Wow. Well, I mean, this is a big problem we also have in the United States is retirement in general, because the math doesn't make sense. The amount of money that you need to retire and the amount that Social Security pays out isn't going to work. And the amount that you save isn't going to work. And you can't save because of inflation. I mean, it's like a death spiral. So the only way I see people retiring is they inherit money. Years ago, my economics professor said 3 ways to be successful in America. You marry into it, you inherit it, or you become a doctor. I think those are all true today. So, good luck to people who are going to retire. The reality is most people will work until they die. Rick, comments?
I want to talk more about Laura Loomer because...
Who's Laura Loomer? I don't even know who she is.
All right, so let me explain. Calling her a right-wing pundit does not give her enough credit because she is a full-on insane person. Her father, I've heard rumors that her father had her committed twice.
Announcer? Who is she? I've never heard of this Laura Loomer.
Is
she a doctor or what is she?
No, she's a pundit, but also like super crazy. She got kicked off of all the social media years ago for saying horrible stuff. When she got kicked off of Twitter, she padlocked herself to the door of Twitter headquarters.
So she's just a social media star or something like that?
Yeah, and she's also like insane.
What does she have a degree in?
I don't think anything. Plastic.
So why are we listening to her?
Because she's Trump's friend. You don't, but like I first learned of her.
Line on bloody anything.
But she's terrible and actually an insane person. She said that somebody had tried to assassinate her by slashing her tires, and then she showed her tires. Her tires were 6.5 years old, and they were cracking because they should have been replaced like 2 years before.
Okay, all right. So Laura Lunatic, who I've never heard of, is a lunatic. It sounds like she's a nobody. She has no formal education, no standing whatsoever, except probably a mouth. Maybe they've heard of her in Australia. I have never heard of this person until Mark
She's
mentioned.
Just somebody who shouldn't be part of anybody's political campaign
or any conversation at all. Why don't you talk about the guy at the
part of the inner circle?
What my guy at the diner said. Come on,
she's part of the inner circle and everything. So I don't know. What is your take on that? Hold on a second. What's your take on that? Because I know that I won't name who he knows. Shaquille has some friends that are inner circles of both Democrats and Republicans and all along those lines. So what is your thoughts when people are critical, because that's what this whole conversation is, Shaquille, of Trump and Laura Loomer, because apparently he's being called out, Trump is, by even some of the Republicans like Lindsey Graham, because he's hanging out with her.
I just want to know why we're wasting our time with this idiot. I don't know if you remember.
I don't even know what you're talking about. I honestly,
heard of Laura Loomer?
Like John Smith is doing such and such with Kamala Harris. Okay, like I have no idea what you're talking about.
Nonsense, please. She's accompanying Trump in his plane. She's going on all meetings with Trump. She's heavily influencing him, and he took her on commemoration of September 9/11 ceremony.
So she's hanging out with Trump.
So he's hanging out with a complete idiot, with a complete kind of a person who's put all kind of nefarious things.
Okay, all right. Okay.
And Trump.
Okay, all right. Okay, Sasha, calm down.
Hold on, I'm talking. I'm talking. This is why that person is so important. She's influencing Trump and many things. What you said, including dogs and cats being eaten by immigrants, that's coming from her. So he is vulnerable to be influenced of all kinds of idiots. This type of man cannot be a president of the United States. Period.
Oh, I left out.
Okay, all right. So let me just come in. Okay, that's awesome. I don't know who you're talking about. What you've just done is you've just said the same thing that you always say. Donald Trump's terrible. The people around him are terrible, and he shouldn't be the president. I mean, I think we've got that. I don't know who the hell you're talking about. What's the name? Let me Google it.
He's got a person of very, very terrible background, and she travels with him and goes to every event with him, including.
And her name is Laura Loomer. Is that correct? Laura Loomer?
Yes.
Is her name Laura Loomer?
Well, I'm on my phone. I'm going to Google this person so I can see what's happening.
L-O-O-M-E-R, Loomer. Oh, one more thing. She's a 9/11 was an inside jobber.
Who cares what she says?
Well, because
who cares?
Nobody cares what she
Speaking
says.
of who cares, I'm actually flipping to the other side.
Met a person at the diner, and the person at the diner is not my speech.
I'm actually flipping to the other side. So
some people,
Nick, because I'm gonna flip
why
to
are
the
we
other
talking
side.
about it?
Some people will care. Some people won't care, because I actually watched an interview with Patrick Mahomes, who is basically saying that everybody needs to research themselves. He's not necessarily saying, as his wife did, that he is supporting Trump for whatever reasons and everything, but he's just saying for people to research, and he's kind of taking that I'm not going to endorse any candidate stance. But there is somebody that has endorsed somebody that is very popular, and apparently she has driven 400,000 people to voter registration sites in less than 24 hours. That is Taylor Swift. So, and the Balts apparently used that as part of the campaign rally here in North Carolina, saying you mess with cat people and you will find out. So should we care about what Taylor Swift says?
Yeah, absolutely right, because 400,000 people out of a following of 280 million, we put that down as a success. So I've looked at Laura Loomer very briefly. I still don't know who she is, but I can understand why you don't like her, because, she's been involved in Project Veritas, and oh my goodness, you can't do that. And she's been involved in InfoWars, and oh my goodness, you can't do that. So she's very, very right wing. So therefore, she's a horrible person. And then you say, well, she's a 9/11 conspiracy theorist. It was an inside job. You mean like Michael Moore and like all the left-wing liberals were saying around that time? Is that what you mean?
I don't know what Michael Moore said. I mean, he's taking an inside jobber to the memorial. But so I'm okay.
What does it have to do with his policies or Kamala Harris' policies?
Does it have on anything?
So it has to do with politics.
The problem I have with Laura Loomer is you can have all the right-wing advisors you want. You're a right-wing candidate, but she's an actual crazy person. There are dozens and dozens of stories of her lunacy. She was kicked off of every social media for being a total asshole. Her dad had her put away in the loony bin like twice. I mean, she's.
I think we've got that. We understand your position is that she's a crazy person and she's a right winger and she's terrible. But what I'm just totally confused. Why is this a big deal?
Because they're making it a big deal.
Hold on a second.
Does she have an official position?
Well, you've got people on the left. You've got people on the left talking about. Hold up. Let me respond. You've got extreme people on the left that talk about Israel should never exist, right? You've got people on the left that have said that 9/11 should have happened. You've got people on the left
and they're
that say that America should be destroyed and go and burn American flags. And now you're going to sit here and tell people that they're supposed to be upset at Trump because he's got a lunatic on his side? Wow.
This is newsworthy because she's so loathsome that she's in a feud.
No, it's only left.
Hold on, wait, you're interrupting. She's been for the past half of a week, she's been in a feud with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who says that Loomer is so terrible, she should be, banned from. She put up a tweet that said that, I mean, this is not that bad, but that if Kamala Harris is elected a president, the White House will stink of curry, and the switchboard will be replaced with an Indian call center. Which, I mean, all right, that's
you have to admit that's pretty funny. But I actually like it.
I don't think it's funny. I think that's ridiculous. But again, who cares?
But
hold on, because there's this big feud going. Hold on, you asked the question. Let me answer the question, because there's this feud going on among people where people are calling her out. Lindsey Graham, she's fighting with him. He's an actual, person, senator. She's fighting with him. This whole thing is, and all right,
the whole thing is a complete waste of time. I mean, she has no.
All I want to say is that this is complete lunacy on Trump, but it's one of too many. To invite a person like this to travel with him, to be with him, to be officially on the official ceremony.
She's not officially.
But you know what? Have fun, Nick, and you
let's
have a lot of fun with it.
And then you say
November 5th, all this lunacy will be over. The old Trumpism will be done and over. So have good time until November 5th. Enjoy.
Hang on. I want to respond. I'd like to respond to that, Sasha, because I'm getting quite tired of this. I'm not American. You're not either. I don't really care. I just happen to disagree with you about who's likely to win and the reasons why. Okay, you're not going to be right. I'm not going to be right. Well, one of us is going to be right. One of us is going to be wrong. We'll find out on election day. Okay. I happen to think that Donald Trump's economic policies for the United States is better for Americans than Kamala Harris's. Whilst I acknowledge that Kamala Harris, that's my opinion.
Okay.
I think that. However, I say that for me personally, somebody who's not American, Kamala Harris's policies are better for me, right? Because I think that it will distort the market in my favor. So this constant thing that I'm getting, like, Shaquille, Trump is blah blah. Like, why are you labeling me with this? I don't have any skin in this fight.
You are propaganding the.
I am not propaganding anything.
No, your speech is always tilted toward the Republicans. Maybe you're doing involuntarily, maybe it just happened to be that way. But that's
Sasha.
He's not.
You know what, Sasha? Okay, hang on. Let me respond to Sasha. Sasha, you know what? Look,
That's not true.
You have your reasons for disliking Trump. That's fine. Okay. Yes. I have my reasons for disliking political left parties. One of those reasons is because throughout my entire life here in Australia, up until reasonably recent, the colour of my skin never mattered. But as soon as the Democrats in America pushed out this whole race thing, all of a sudden people treat me differently, and I resent that. And I blame the Labor Party of Australia, Justin Trudeau's party in Canada, all these left parties around the Western world for it. And you know what? I've never asked you this, but when it comes to issues like transing the kids and things like that, I don't believe that you genuinely believe that there is a difference between sex and gender. I don't believe that you genuinely believe that it's a good idea to have, year one kids, 6 or 7 years old, going to drag queens and putting dollar bills in their G-strings. I don't think that's the kind of person you are. So you happen not to like Donald Trump for whatever reasons you've got. I happen to be a little bit biased against Democrats and center-left parties because I'm sick of the regulations. I'm sick of the high taxes. I'm sick of them trying to attack people who are successful. I'm sick of them trying to turn people against each other when we used to get along. And now there's a conflict between the sexes. There's a conflict between the LGBTQ community and the rest of us where there wasn't one before. There's a conflict between the races. I'm tired of it, and I think it's their fault. So don't sit there and then say that because I feel that way, I'm somehow, some huge Trump supporter. Because I don't vote for the Labor Party in my countries. I don't vote for them in the UK. I don't vote for them in Australia. Okay, so I might have an opinion which slants centre right, but don't attribute the crazy stuff Republicans do to me.
Shakil, you attribute to Democrats all these various things that you just listed. What Kamala Harris has to do with all that? You listen to her speeches, her performance on debates, and her interviews with authors, so on. Is she anything saying so that would associate her with all these horrible things that you just signed?
Absolutely. She's talked about using US tax dollars to pay for transgender care and cross-sex stuff for immigrants. It's her policy. I'll show you. I can't find it right this second on air live. I'll show them to you. She has made statements like that. She's talked about that before. She's talked about ending fracking. I don't know if she even knows what it is. She's talked about support for the Green New Deal, which is extremely expensive, and you have to force it upon people when we don't yet have the technology to switch to that. She is standing for policies that I don't agree with.
What did you say?
Hold on. She's changed her mind on fracking. She's pro-fracking now. I want to talk about one.
She changed her mind what? Because she was in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is one of the most crucial states. Do we believe that?
Maybe she learned more about
I don't believe her.
No,
I don't believe her. I really don't.
About fracking because she wants to defeat Putin. This is why she changed her mind on fracking, and she said so. Listen to her, please.
Okay, but I don't believe her. Okay, if she wins, cool, but I don't believe her.
Rick.
So two things. One is the Biden-Harris administration. I mean, it's probably more Biden. It has for the past 3 years has been producing more oil and natural gas, more fossil fuel than any other country at any other time in history. A new record every year. 22, 23 this year, and anticipated again next year. We're producing a ton of fossil fuel, which goes against Biden's and Harris's campaign promises. They changed their policies. Hold on. One more thing I want to talk about, because I think this is crazy. With 53 days to go until the election, Trump is dropping his own new cyber coin, which just seems a crazy money grab when he should be concentrating on his campaign.
Well, I don't know about that. Let me just come back to the policy stuff. If you happen to think that she changes that her and Biden break their campaign promises, then why are you surprised when I say I don't believe her? That's first. Secondly, yes, it is true that the United States has increased its oil production. That's correct. However, that happened, I believe, because they were forced to do it. And the fact of the matter is that one of the reasons why you have this issue in the United States with much higher prices is because it's not just about bringing the oil out of the ground, it's also about processing it. And you don't have the commensurate investment into those sorts of facilities. When we talk about inflation, everyone scoffs. It is absolutely true that when you take the whole number of inflation across the country and average it, that's going to give you a much lower figure than what real inflation actually is. Now, when I was in the United States last year, I went to Jack in the Box. I bought 2 burgers, chips, and a drink. It cost me $40. I can afford it, but I don't think that the everyday family can afford to go to these fast food places. We know that McDonald's and some of these places are closing down in California. We know that we've seen the prices of things go up by much more than 20%. You know, New York property has gone up by much more than that. And these figures are being ignored. I don't think that the things that she is saying so far is going to connect with the American people. That is not the same, though, to repeat what I said before, as me being some Trumpy, I don't really care. I think that he does a good job. I think he did a good job while he was there. I think he will do a good job if he gets in. And I also think that Kamala Harris will do a good job.
A question to you. So you believe that once Trump will become a president, so the same meal which cost you $40 will start cost only $30 or
No, I didn't say that.
Happen?
I didn't say that I thought there was going to be deflation under Donald Trump, although there could very well be a recession.
So, okay, you're frozen. While you're frozen, let me talk about the refiners, because I know about refiners because I live in California. And in California, we pay maybe $2 a gallon more than the rest of the country. $1 is because of taxes. Taxes and the increased cost of making special fuel that has made California from the most polluted, LA, the most polluted city in the US, to having pretty decent air. But another dollar is the refiners constantly screwing us. They will shut down plants to create artificial. The refiners are a-holes. The oil companies are a-holes. They're making record profits. And in California, for decades, we've been getting screwed by the refiners playing games with scarcity. They'll shut down.
Not by your tax department.
You can let me just finish, and you can tell me where I'm wrong. They'll shut down refineries at the times a year when they can get the most for gas to create more scarcity, so they can further jack up the price.
Okay, so a couple of things. I just want to finish what I was saying before I got disconnected. Sasha, I don't think that there'll be deflation, but I do think that the economy will grow bigger and more, and in a more wholesome and a more sustainable way under Donald Trump than what it will when you've got the top-down approach of government spending being the way that you boost the economy. So that's my personal opinion. To you, Rick, is the suggestion that California is being bullied by the oil companies, that they bully California and don't bully anybody else? Are they only create these shortages in California? Right. So some of the price discrepancy between California and the rest of your country is because of the taxes. And I don't see how those taxes are doing what they told you they were going to do with it. They said they were going to take that money for all these environmental things. And what have they done?
They've made LA's air bearable. I remember when I flew into LA 50 years ago in the 70s, and there was a brutal green-brown cloud over the whole city. Now it's not perfect, but it's a lot better. And I'm saying oil companies take advantage wherever they can, and in California they're able to take advantage. Now I don't live any other place to know whether oil companies are being a-holes in Louisiana.
But every company does that. Every company tries to maximize its profits to the absolute most that they can.
Oh, okay, but I'm saying the oil companies are making a shit ton of money. They're making
so are the banks, so are the media companies, so are the tech companies. Like what?
Okay.
What are you talking about here?
I don't know how we got on this.
I can tell you why. Because I think that there is a perception that oil companies and the Koch brothers tend to put their money behind Republicans. So it's very easy to beat them up and blame them for everything. Okay. And oil isn't just used to fuel cars and planes and everything else. We use oil products, petroleum products, and all sorts of other things, from materials that we use to pharmaceuticals, all sorts of other uses for oil. But because some of the powerful names in oil sit on the Republican side, they always get the bad press. You very rarely see bad press about those industries that tend to support left-wing causes.
Well, so no, I'm pissed at the oil companies because for 20 years I've seen what they do to oil prices in California, where I live. When I go to the pump and I pay $6, some of that is profiteering. And I know, yeah, they have companies to run, but they also get huge subsidies. When I go to the grocery store, when we go out to dinner, there are other. So I don't know who frickin' owns Popeyes.
Well,
wait, let me finish. I don't know if it's owned by Democrats or Republicans, but when I go to Popeyes and a chicken tender used to be $1 and now it's $3.50, I get pissed at Popeyes regardless of their politics.
But it wasn't Popeyes.
But you know what? We see prices in Australia for the same product, and oftentimes these days it's a digital product that is substantially higher to purchase here than what it is in the US or Canada or elsewhere. Right? So I speak to my friends overseas, hey, can you buy this thing for me on your credit card with your address instead of me buying it from here? It's annoying. Now, part of the reason for it, though, is not just price gouging. Some of it's price gouging, but part of the reason why is because the cost of doing business in different locations can often be higher. Maybe there's more regulations. Maybe if you do have a physical location, maybe the cost of your rent is higher. Maybe the cost of distributing goods is higher, right? Wages of staff is higher. So that often changes the price point that you've got to pay for things. Now, I'm not going to defend the oil companies, but everything is more expensive in my experience in California than what it is elsewhere in the US.
And yeah, I'm just pissed at the oil companies because they fuck me. And like Rex Tillerson was Trump's first chief of staff for 10 months. The guy he ran Exxon. And he was probably, kind of an evil guy when he was CEO of Exxon. But as chief of staff, I liked the guy. He was like a lone voice of sanity in the Trump administration. He was good at his job, and he had to leave because he couldn't deal with Trump anymore. So I like everybody's going crazy. Here's one more thing about, the Democrats are being accused of being huge hypocrites because we celebrate Dick Cheney coming out in support of Kamala Harris, saying he's going to vote for her. And everybody's saying, well, yeah, but you guys hated him when you called him a war criminal. And it's like, well, that's not exactly the point. That even if this guy that we called Darth Vader, that Trump is too far for him, then yeah, I celebrate him coming out in favor.
Yeah, but that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it is, and I think the way that a lot of the MAGA crowd looks at it is, that Donald Trump went in there in 2016 as a Democrat who flipped to the Republicans because he was unhappy with government and what he called the swamp. You remember, he was going to drain the swamp and he was going to get rid of all these people. He's an anti-establishment person. And people like Dick Cheney were were part of the establishment. So those people don't want to be don't want to associate with a guy who's trying to get rid of them. So it's Trump's success that people like Dick Cheney are leaving. And where do they find refuge? They find refuge in the Democrats. Again, there's no one side or the other is true or not true. It's just going to be how people choose to look at the issue.
The people that I love the most. Hold on. Wait.
Igor, do you still consider?
I didn't hear what you said, Sasha. I'm sorry.
Do you still consider Trump to be anti-establishment figure?
Not really. I think that some of his policies are far more isolationist for the US than what I would like. But I think no, I wouldn't really say he's anti-establishment, but I think he's more anti-establishment than perhaps others, and I think his supporters view it that way. I mean, there's been a fracturing in politics around the Western world where people feel like they're politically homeless, and neither party represents them anymore.
But trying to get to Steve, but Steve unfortunately had to bounce off.
Right, sorry, one more quick thing is the people I love in politics the most tend to be never Trumper Republicans or former Republicans. Joe Walsh, Rick Wilson. So I'm not like super lefty. I'm like at the most middle of the road Democrat. So I like a nice Republican who's looked at Trump and said, he's freaking horrible. He doesn't I want a healthy Republican Party. I want
well, Rick, I have to say, I don't think, look, everything you said up until that point, yeah, I agree. I think that older Democrats, I'm not trying to call you older, but just older than me.
I am. I'm old. I'm freaking old.
Well, I wouldn't say you're old, but people, the boomer generation of Democrats, I think, are not really in touch or have very much in common with, the younger progressive Democrats. I think they've got a lot more in common with the centre-right people. Now, I'm centre-right because people used to say I was centre-left, because I do believe in regulations to a degree, but not over-regulations. I believe in taxation, but not too much. I mean, things have to have a balance. I think the Republicans, Democrats have gone, to extremes. But I often hear Democrats say, well, we just wish that we had, the old GOP back. We had, this is not the GOP of your grandfather's time. We want to see John McCain. We want to see Colin Powell. We want to see these sorts of people. I find that fascinating, because when those sorts of people were in power, you didn't like him. No, not you personally. You didn't like him. You won't vote for him. And all the media coverage about them was negative. Everything was, they're warmongers and they're this and they're that. Now that they're gone, now all of a sudden, well, that's really what we want. We really wanted a Republican Party that's like that. If the Republicans said, we really want a Democrats Party that more embodied the viewpoint of Thomas Jefferson or of JFK, right? Well, things have changed. We're a party of progress. I mean, I don't get this argument.
But Shaquille, hold on a second, because I heard a couple things you said that I got to push back on slightly and everything. One is that I have heard people say just what you said, that they would like, and I think I've even heard Rick say that, and I've said it as well, that they would like the Democratic Party of JFK and all along those lines, even though there were some policies that JFK had that were not that favorable and everything along those lines. And I've also heard people say, and I was one of them, that I actually did admire Colin Powell and wished that he had run for a higher office and all.
But would you have voted for him?
Yes, I would have voted for.
Would you have voted for him?
Yes,
really?
For Colin Powell.
Would you have voted for? Okay. Well, just so that's what I was thinking. I've just mentioned blank on his name. The senator from Virginia.
Doug Wilder.
It was like it was a Democrat who recently left the Democrats to become an independent. He was one of the. Sorry.
Was it Doug Wilder? Doug Wilder was a Democrat, but I can't remember whether he became an independent.
There was Kirsten Sinema and him. I've just forgotten his name.
What's his face?
Yeah. I'm going to shed some light on why the Republicans.
Well, in any case, what I'd say is moderate Democrats, they tend to get attacked, don't they? But they tend to get attacked by the progressive media.
Yeah. Well,
you don't like them either. So suggesting if you had more moderate Republicans, you'd vote for them. I don't think that's where the Democrats are in this border right now.
Let's talk about Fetterman for 1 second. Wait 1 second.
I wasn't talking about Fetterman.
The rest of what I was saying, because you said something else, Shaquille, that I was going to push back on slightly as well, which, yes, there were people in certain communities that were hidden in those communities, and for whatever reason, because they did not feel safe. So I'm not going to say that the LGBTQIA community and the straight community have not been at each other's throats to some degree for decades and everything. Now, there were some people now they might have become more activists. That I will agree with you on and everything, but I do think that there's been some tension, just like there've been race tensions, because even when we come back to the corporation novel concept, I remember that there were people that literally, because they felt that they were targeting certain communities, and I think we've had this conversation off air before and everything, because they felt they were targeting certain communities that I don't know whether they were Republicans or Democrats, but I know that Snapple was attacked because they felt that the Snapple leadership was part of the far right in the terms of like being Klan. So I'm assuming that they assumed that they might have been like fascists or something along those lines and everything. But I know that there were also beer companies that were attacked, largely because of who they were targeting, because they were targeting the African American community, like the heavy liquor companies. Because I actually know one of the gentlemen from right here in North Carolina that was targeting those audiences and everything. But like Rick said, I don't know necessarily the political party that those people were on, because some of them were Democrats, some of them were Republicans. I mean, shucks, my mom works for the
you said a lot of things.
Cigarette money, and it was the cigarette. She was the first president. It was that cigarette settlement money, so she had to distribute money. And yes, she was attacked by, I want to say, both Republicans and Democrats because of where the money was going, because it was supposed to get people out of the tobacco industry. And there was people that were liking some of the proposals, and they favored some of them, whether it was going into solar, or whether it was going into starting your own business or whatever. So I want to say, and I have to ask Mom, that they were attacked on both sides and everything along those lines. And there might have been more Republican attacks, but I do think that they were attacked on both sides. So that's my point, is that sometimes there are attacks on both sides, and I think that this has happened for a while. And even Kamala has been saying, Vice President Harris, that what she's trying to do, whether we agree with it or not, is an economics or an economic prosperity kind of campaign. Now, some people are saying that that's too far radical, that it almost sounds Marxist or everything, and there's always advertisements. I just saw one where they're teasing her and saying that she is using radical, and they try to make it as a bad thing. Now, in my mind, you can be radical and you can even be a good thing. So I think that that's one of them words that can be used either as a pejorative or it can be used as a positive, because, somebody's radical policies may be something that folks feel are needed. I mean, shucks, my friend.
Mark, at some point we're going to... I'm sorry, you said to me, Keel, you need to respond. I need to push back against something. You start off with LGBTQ and you've gone to tobacco and both sides and economics. So I'm just going to pick two things.
Okay.
There's no doubt the LGBT community has not had the same sorts of rights and privileges and freedoms that the rest of us have enjoyed. Okay. However, I think that now things have gone too far where even people in the LGBT community are uncomfortable with how much of an issue this has become. They just wanted to be treated normally like everybody else and have the same rights. Now they're front and center of every single issue. And it's not, in my opinion, the everyday person. It's not gay guys at a Rick's age that are out there doing a lot of the time that are out there advocating for some of this stuff. In relation to the economic issues, look, when Kamala Harris says that she wants to lift the middle class, my immediate reaction when I was watching that debate was, lift them into what exactly? Lift them into the class of being rich? Because you hate the rich. You want to eat the rich. So what is she proposing? That she's going to lift them up? And even if she does lift them up, what is she going to do then? Confiscate all their wealth so that she can give it to the so-called poor? Because you're never going to run out, because if you do run out of poor people in your country, you'll just import them. You certainly don't want to import the rich people from overseas, do you?
She answered the question because she said she wanted to make it easier for a small business owner to have an opportunity to have a small business. If you want to do that, it's easier, and it is hard. Even Nick has said this.
Yeah.
Get rid of other things. So a lot of things that are hard to get for the middle class.
You know what, Mark? Mark, you know what? If all it required was giving them a $50,000 deduction, okay. But starting a business is far more complicated than just taxation, okay? It's regulation, it's licensing, it's the fact you've got all these laws, it's the fact that you can ask a question. If you ring up the SEC or the IRS or anybody else and say, hey, there's two conflicting regulations or laws. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do. Can you please tell me? You know what they'll tell you to do? They'll tell you to go and get a lawyer. But if you go and get a lawyer and the lawyer gives you advice which is incorrect, guess whose fault it is? It's yours. Things like that hold business people back. Things like knowing that if you get it wrong, you can go to jail and have all your assets stripped away from you. That, I think, is far more important than having a $50,000 deduction.
She's absolutely clueless. Let's take a look at her policy. This is the reason smart people hate Kamala Harris. And by the way, in the debate, Trump won, according to the smart people on LinkedIn. First of all, $25,000 for a house. $25,000 credit for a house will not build one house in America. It's just plain dumb. No tax on a $50,000 startup.
Hold on, she's not saying that it would. She has two separate policies.
Startups don't make any money, Kamala. That just tells me you've never done a startup in your life. That is plain dumb. No tax on unrealized capital gains. Okay, good. Where are they going to get the money to pay the tax? They won't. It's dumb. Now let's go look at other policies of Biden Harris that are just dumb. The Inflation Reduction Act was $783 billion. And most of it was for climate change and expanding the IRS. It actually created the inflation, the reason your hamburgers are so expensive in California. It had nothing to do.
Can I just come back to the unrealized gain tax? So she's going to lift the middle class, and then she's going to tax her unrealized gains. Wow.
Under Biden and Trump, Biden's debt increase was $7.9 trillion. Trump, who is a spendthrift beyond any possible, was only $6.5 trillion. This is the reason why you're having inflation in California. This is the reason why your houses are so expensive. It's because you have a spendthrift administration that is clueless, and it's called the Democratic Party.
All right.
I rest
Two
my
things.
case.
One is that unrealized tax on unrealized capital gain isn't going to happen, isn't practical. She wanted it for only people who have a net worth of more than 100 million. But what might make sense, I think, Shaq, you said, like, if you use your unrealized capital gains to get like a $200 million loan, use it as collateral, then if you're playing that game to fund your yacht building lifestyle, then maybe you pay an extra couple percent on that loan if you're playing games with it. But anyway, the other thing is, wait, viewing suggestion. You said that I, as a boomer Democrat, are less concerned with, the LGBT trans whole deal, which is probably true. But there's a TV show that makes fun of that whole thing that's super freaking funny. That it's called English Teacher. It's on Fox. It's about a high school. Well, it's about every freaking high school now. My wife has worked in high schools, and when we watch it, I'm saying, that's your school, that's your school, that's your school, because the school is dominated by political correctness and trans and LGBTQ correctness, and the comedy is built around everybody having to deal with it, and it's freaking funny.
Just really quickly,
can I just come back on a couple of things? One, on the tax on unrealized gains. If you're not going to do it, then don't say it, okay? Because I think it's ridiculous to say a ridiculous policy and then expect people to go, oh well, she's not going to do it, I'll vote for it. Why even say it in the first place? Secondly, in relation to the whole trans and this and that. Yeah, I don't have a problem with trans people. I really don't. I never have. I have a problem with the way it's being forced into the school system. I have a problem with the way that, like Victoria's Secret, all of a sudden all the models are people aren't going for that. Not you. It's been forced upon us in a way that we're living in a world we don't recognise. And to come to the school system, you've got Common Core, which people didn't like. It was a novel idea. I understand what they were trying to do. It didn't work. It hasn't worked. Give it up. And if you can't come up with something quickly to replace it, go back to what was before. At the moment, you've got parents that don't understand, people who did really well at maths when they were at school, who can't help their kids with their homework because they don't understand what the hell's going on, what's being taught. So, it's fracturing families, and people are resenting it. And I find it fascinating that people say that they want democracy, right? But yet, when you actually have a look at what the parties do, they are forcing things that the majority of people do not support, and they're forcing them on us. They shouldn't do it.
But Shaquille, just really quickly, because I'm the like y'all like to say about the situations and everything along those lines. I'm the only one in this room that, as far as I'm aware, has worked with the Common Core system, because that's literally what Measurement Incorporated is, which is the other job that I have when I'm not working at HI and everything. And I want to say, and I got to double check with my coworkers and everything, that it was actually a policy that was created by both Republicans and Democrats. And I do agree with what you said, because even those of us that work with the company don't always understand the rules and everything, and there's supposed to be a system of fairness within it and everything that we sometimes question as how fair it is, because it can have biases, both rural and urban biases, as well as race biases and everything else. So there are definitely a lot of people that are frustrated by Common Core. That's all I was going to say, is that there are a lot of people
this fairness thing comes back to the unreality that people are trying to live in. When I was at school, there was a German kid. At one of the schools I went to, there was a German kid there, and we used to always ask him, were your parents, Hitler supporters? Were they not? Without really having any context or knowing, because we were kids, and kids are shit, but we never really understood how hurtful that would be. And this poor kid was born in Australia, and he had no idea what was going on back then. And when we got older, we all met up, and it was fine. He wasn't that upset by it, but. It's just one of those things. Now, you're likely to see the kid needs to have counselling and this and that because they're being bullied. But you can't do that to the kids, right? Kids need to learn a little bit of resilience, but they also need to learn when they've hurt somebody. Don't just counsel them and tell them, oh, it's toxic masculinity. As for there are biases, there's always going to be biases. The world is never going to be fair. The world isn't fair. What's fair and just never happens, okay? But we get pretty close sometimes. But when you're trying to, not you personally, none of you guys personally, but when you're trying to create this world of perfect fairness, we live, if we're lucky enough to live in the Five Eyes countries or in Western Europe, but especially the Five Eyes countries, we live in the greatest countries on earth with the most amount of freedom. For all the things that we argue about, we've got it pretty bloody good, right? Compared to everybody else on the world, we've got the billion or so of whatever there is of us that live in these countries. Well, it's probably only 700 million of us, whatever, that live in these countries. We enjoy the best lifestyle that the planet currently offers. And all the people do is complain about it. Go and see the world, and then you'll come back very quickly to the United States with a newfound respect for why it should continue with some traditional values.
I may not see the world as much as I would like to, but I have definitely traveled quite a, I mean, I've got friends from all over the world, though, including yourself, but some that are literally here that I am friends with as well. But I'm just coming back to Common Core and everything. But yet I agree with you, because even the way it's structured is very problematic and everything. And even the way that we do it at the company that I work with, because they require a college degree, even though a lot of the work that we are doing is rote work, because it's like they give you a rubric, you're supposed to grade according to the rubric.
If Common Core hasn't resulted in students with better results and better educational outcomes, then scrap it. It's as simple as that. This is a results-oriented thing. If the students are not doing better, if they're doing worse, scrap it. Let's go to it.
When you taught Shaq, you talked about parents not being able to do the new math with their kids. This is something we heard, you're younger than I am, 50 years ago in the 70s, with the new math then that was created as a response, as part of the freak out when Russia put up Sputnik in 57. The US is like, well, we have to teach people better math, more effective math. And that new math, which was incomprehensible to parents, resulted in the tech dominance that we have now. So if you're talking about coding, every freaking kid should know how to code, because that's where the dominance is coming from. And again, I gotta say, you gotta watch English Teacher, because it makes fun of the current political correctness around LGBTQ. It's freaking hilarious.
I'll see if I can find it, because we don't.
Where do
programs.
I see the English Teacher on? What network carries?
I think it's Fox, or one of the Fox networks.
Oh, okay.
So just with your argument though with Common Core, look, people, especially people that are, say, my grandparents' age or older, will complain the kids don't know how to do long division, and the kids were using calculators and all that sort of stuff, right? I somewhat agree with them. I agree with you about coding, although these days with AI, but certainly some sort of tech skills is going to be an important thing. But the thing with Common Core is, there's a lot of maths in what I do. And, I struggle to understand what they're doing. And I try to think about, well, when I was a kid, would I find this helpful? And I can see that kids are really, really finding it very, very hard. And to me, the way they're teaching the maths part in the Common Core, look, teach the kids the original stuff, and then maybe when the kids are older, you can give them this to expand their knowledge. But I think that when you're trying to do it right from that early stage, it'll work for some kids, but the majority of kids, it shows, the stats show, it's not just the United States, it's across the Western world that have tried this, it hasn't worked. So scrap it. But the teachers' unions and all these big groups, they just will not ever accept that they've tried something and it hasn't worked out. See, private enterprise, you try something, it doesn't work out, you go on to something else. But if you're spending government money, you just keep throwing money at stuff that doesn't work.
Yeah, the math curriculum, I don't know about from Common Core, but why geometry? Replace geometry with statistics. Statistics you can actually use in the frickin' world. Nobody uses trig, except unless you're a fucking engineer.
It's true.
Well, maybe you want to be an engineer. But that's like saying, hey, why bother doing, like I did advanced English and there was poetry and all this sort of stuff. Why bother doing any of that unless you're planning on being a comedy writer or something? I mean, you need to learn a little bit of everything.
But should geometry be the very first class in math that everybody gets in high school? Or should we look at rejiggering some of this stuff?
How much
let me ask
geometry
you.
have
I
you
looked
used
up
in your
because I've
career?
got some recognition of prior learning and stuff. So I looked up what would be required for me to do a Bachelor of Actuarial Sciences or something along those lines. And guess what? Core module 1 is of the university I found that offered the course, Indigenous Studies.
Yeah, all right. I mean,
I mean, come on.
that's goofy. So watch English
Exactly.
that makes fun of that goofiness.
Yeah.
Time to wrap. I don't know if either of you are available, but
If you want to hang around, Rick, it's a Friday.
like I
We're
said,
going to be backstage for a bit.
not Shaquille, Sasha's being almost abandoned because he doesn't have Jonathan. So I might need you to go in there, Shaquille and Nick, if y'all can pop into the Ukraine-Russia show.
Okay.
Drop
All
me
right. We'll finish
the
up here.
link there.
and move
We'll hang backstage. Drop me the link, and then we'll go over there.
Okay.
We'll
Right.
finish this up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, next time. Here we go.